So how you feeling? I heard you were a little under the weather.
Well, I was actually, like in terms of health-wise, I was fine. It was just my voice goes sometimes, and it was like, I wonder what people have been doing on this table. So,
it's nice and rolled up there,
no, sometimes it just blows out. It's usually about halfway through a tour, and it's been, there's been a lot of shows in a row, and it was my voice got tired. So I'm fine now. Yeah. I went and got all these steroid injections and shit like that.
Steroid injections?
Yeah, that's the emergency procedure. This is to try and just take the swelling down in the vocal cords. So usually you get it administered in your ass, but I didn't get it there this time.
Where'd you get it? I don't know why I'm asking these questions.
Just in the arm. Yeah, just in the arm. Yeah.
Oh, you can see the down.
Yeah, I know. That's where it's. Yeah. So yeah.
You're feeling better. So what happens when the show's canceled like that? You guys try and reschedule it? Does it just...
Yeah, it was only one show, luckily, so we are, planning on coming back in October, so we're going to fit the Louisville, Kentucky date into that.
So you're on the road basically for the rest of the year?
Oh, yeah, at least, and hopefully the album cycle expands into, quite a bit into 2014 as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind being busy, it's a good sign. Sometimes you can just get too busy for your own good, I think.
You like the military lifestyle?
Yeah.
Or do you call touring military lifestyle?
I have compared it to that in the past. Now, that is really belittling the military in a terrible way, because it's not nearly as difficult as that. However, it's the scheduling and the routine. The comparison that I made was, I think it must feel somewhat similar to come home after that and have none, be suddenly back in the normal world where you're not being told to do this then, or have everything done for you, like Ian, who you just met, sorts our lives out, really, and we're adults. I mean, that's not a great sort of thing to get used to, because when you get home you're like a grown-up child who's like, why isn't someone going to get me coffee, for instance, So it can be sort of a shock to the system coming home, and I think, the military must be that times, 100.
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So what's the hardest thing to adjust to when you do get home?
I think finding a purpose to your day can be, I mean, I'll tend to switch off for 3 or 4 days and then try and get back into writing or doing something creative, because I don't do much of that on the road. But yeah, it can be very easy because I guess my living isn't made on a day-to-day basis, in terms of income. I can justify doing nothing for 2 weeks, but I shouldn't, because it's not good for me, So it's that sort of sense of aimlessness and a lack of purpose that I find I have to go out of my way to readjust, to find a new schedule, if you like.
Interesting. Yeah. So when you do get back, you take those days off, you start wanting to write again.
Yeah.
Do you have a place that you go? Do you gravitate to a certain instrument first? How does that start? Is it lyrics?
It's not lyrics first. It's always what I'll do is on tour I'll have my phone gathering little bits of voice memo,
humming
things from sound
kind of
check.
thing?
Yeah,
okay.
Humming melodies, sound check, things that we're just working on, but never a full song. So I'll come back and I'll just siphon through those, and there's a nugget, and then I'll just work that into a song. And so when I get back, it's about just sitting with the guitar, and then to write lyrics I have to leave the house. So I go, for better or worse, the best place for me to write is a large Starbucks up the road, because they don't play music too loud, so I can ignore it, and it's a nice big space, and I know I have a weird borderline phobia about physical space.
Are we too close? How are we doing?
We were fine, because we were doing an interview.
Okay.
Now, if I was trying to write and have a coffee and you were sat right there doing something else, I feel that would
be weird.
Yeah. But even then, some cafes and restaurants and things, they just put their tables too close together for me. So that place has got space. I feel like I can have my own little world, and there's also large windows, so I can kind of look out and observe. And I just, unfortunately, it's a Starbucks, but who gives a fuck?
Or a coffee shop.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
So then, are you writing it in pen and paper? Or is it on a computer? How does that?
Oh yeah, it's always pen to paper first. Always, I'll finalize on the computer. So the computer stage is the very end, where it's I think you can get a sense of it brings clarity, because my pages are a mess. They're just like constant, like scrubbing out for finding the right word, and then once I'll get through that, I'll type it out on the computer at the final stages. But yeah, it's always still pen and paper. I think that's the most effective brain to page kind of path for me, anyway.
No, I hear that. You mentioning scribbling out words. What was the most laborious song on this record to finish, lyrically at least?
I think. I mean, actually, the Woodpile went, even though it's probably the simplest lyrically, went through quite a few versions. It was that was a process of really thinning down the lyrics so that it wasn't overcomplicated. So that one took a while.
Were you putting too much of yourself into it?
Yeah, No. I don't ever mind that. That's never a problem. Like, I would never censor it in that way. Well, I certainly made a decision not to for this record. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that. It was about being too wordy to serve the song. So it was actually, it started off being with sort of more complex verses, and they weren't really working. And it does take a little bit of self-restraint or self-criticism to go, you know what? I like these words. They're poetic and they're nice, but they don't work in this song. So that was a thinning out process of just like slowly distilling it to what was actually required within that song, so that the whole thing was powerful and effective.
And is this before the band years and stuff, or is this after you've created the melodies with the band and everything kind of arranged?
Yeah, I mean, they work in different ways. The majority of these ones were done with myself and one or two other members in the band. It was like a combination of whichever ones. It was usually me and Andy and then one other member. And we would work on the music, get a structure together. I never write lyrics without the song being there. So sometimes on a couple of occasions, like the Woodpile and Late March, Death March on this record, those were written in a more traditional me in a room on my own fashion. And then a lot of the other stuff, most of the other stuff was written collectively, and then I would, they would work away on other parts of the music whilst I was working on the lyrics. We were all living together in we had like 3 months separately in residence in houses in Scotland, and so we had set up one recording room. It was obviously like an entire there's a bunch of bedrooms and stuff that we would work in as well, and so that was just kind of like a free, open door process. If you wanted to come in and work on the music, you could. If you wanted to sit in the next room and write a book, you could. Write a book?
Yeah,
nobody wrote a book. No, read a book. Yeah. They're not writing books yet. But
well, what's the book on the cover of the record? Is that a graphic or is that an actual book?
I mean, that does exist. I found that that's just I actually couldn't tell you what the actual book, what the book is, but I went out and just bought a bunch of old books, and I went to a company in Glasgow who do like letterpress and embossing, so we contrived the logo and stuff like that, and it does exist.
That's cool. I'm glad it's not a graphic.
My mum has that. Oh no, that was one of the stipulations of I've been working with the same designer for all of our records, and he's very keen on making sure that if you're going to have a photograph, the information that you need should be within the photograph already, rather than, he hates placing text on photographs. It's one of his peeves. So he tries to make sure that everything, like even the back cover for this record, was laid out, printed off, made to look old, and then rephotographed.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Dave's a hugely talented yet annoyingly anal man. And I'm glad he was dealing with it this time, because I used to have to deal with that. Like I did most of the artwork in the previous efforts, and he would have me like going back and handwriting things to the nth degree, and I'm like, Dave, please, can we just? So it got to the point where he made a typeface out of my handwriting just to save me time.
Really?
Yeah. So that exists actually, and maybe one day I'll get that released.
You should put the lyric book like that.
I should actually. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. No, there are plans to do a lyric book as well, like that sort of mirrors the front cover. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, sell at the merch table.
I think it'd be good, yeah.
First line on the record, I'm that dickhead in the kitchen. That's a bold statement.
Right.
And it's a very self-deprecating line.
Well, it's not, that song, I think there were a few reasons for putting it on the front end of the record. Like, we moved to a major label. I think a lot of our existing fans were like, slightly worried about what that might mean.
Does that still happen? Really?
Fuck yeah. Yeah. There was a sort of general response of, kind of like trepidation. And I had it too, actually. I was worried. I didn't know what it was going to be like living on a major label now. My fears were quickly like dissipated as soon as we started working with him. But so I think putting that on the front end of the record, it was a statement of intent as well. It's like a fairly hard line. It's a mildly amusing line, and I think that that song is not. Although I'm saying it in first person, and it's talking about myself. I think I'm talking about the male population as a whole. What it's like to try and be a good man, you have to suppress a lot of natural male instincts, I think.
I agree with that.
And that's what that song is about. Now, and I didn't want to just start by talking shit about guys that are assholes or dickheads. I wanted to include myself in that as well, because sometimes my behaviour is included in that. Not too far away from those guys. We all know what they're like. We've all seen them. And we all have the same instincts in a way, but some people are just better at suppressing them or keeping them at bay than others. And so that song kind of, for me, encapsulates what it's like to be a man, I guess.
So I've read that you tried to write about other people's lives in this record, but then it didn't quite work out as well as you thought it was going to.
No, I mean, just my life took over a little bit, and sometimes you write. Sometimes you write because you have no choice. There's something you need to work out, and I write for that reason a lot. And I think just things are happening in my life that I needed to figure out, and I do that often through songs. It's one of the most effective ways I've found to do it, because I'm not really very good at conversation or expressing these things within conversation. So yeah, I was halfway through. And I was writing about, Acts of Man was done, State Hospital was done, there's like Backyard Skulls, there's the housing songs, maybe you're looking a bit more generally. And then specifics came in. But I think what was good was it started there was a mode of language that, was looking at, was maybe less landscape, kind of. The last record, I think, was an open landscape, and I think this one's a much more closed city environment, or certainly domestic landscape. So I think once I'd started that, then that language continued on into like December's traditions, talking about living rooms and where people, people's habitats and stuff like that. So, and people's habits. So yeah, there was personal stuff. But hopefully it still works as an album, as a one piece. I don't know.
Do you try and write so it's a one piece?
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't. That really only comes to light at the very, very end when we're doing the track listing. But I do try and there has to be a thread. I think there has to be something that holds it together, and sometimes it's not apparent until you're actually at the end. But I like the format of an album. It seems like a neat, compact, because of the way that I feel like a song can make a very messy time in my life feel very neat. I like that box of a song when they're extended into that. The box of the album makes a period of my life feel very complete and framed, I guess is the right word for it. So.
Did you do that before you were writing songs? Or have you always been writing?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But then I didn't maybe have any problems. There was nothing. I only started writing when I was 18. Prior to that, life was, things were fine. My life's not been bad. I'm not saying that. I just didn't have anything particularly catastrophic.
No, but as you grow up,
things
bills to pay,
all that stuff. All that stuff starts
pretty carefree until you're about 18.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That's it. So then I discovered a reason to write at 18, which I think is probably the right time to start. Anyway, if you're writing pre-18, then I have no idea what you're going to do. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah.
How does that work live? When you're talking about crafting the track listing to keep a continuous thread, do you try and keep that in the live show?
Well,
can you?
Oh no, I mean thematically, no.
Yeah.
That's much less relevant. I think the idea of a live show is just as fun to make the set list, but you're more like you're making a mixtape. You know, you're like taking people hopefully on a journey, and then similarly you can do that with a record as well. But you have to think about much more about pacing, where you're allowed to have a dip. You do that on a record too, actually. I mean, it is a similar process, but I guess we're putting together like an hour and 35 minutes as opposed to 40 minutes on a record. But yeah, it's, you know, similarly, it needs to be thought out. It needs to have a flow and a pace, definitely.
Are there certain songs that you end up playing every night that you find, like I've heard you really, where did I write it? In interviews, like Modern Leper, Old Old Fashioned, Keep Yourself Warm.
I mean, Keep Yourself Warm has taken a year off, so that's gone.
How come? Why?
For me, it had worn a bit thin. We'd played it every night for, I don't know, when did I write it? Like 6 years or something. I mean, it's popular, but to me as well, having written this new record, we played it a couple of times alongside the new material, and it felt like a kid had written it or something. Because I wrote it when I was like, I was probably 22, 23 maybe, and well, I wrote sort of the majority of it when I was that age, and then kind of finalised it later on. But yeah, it just felt really immature next to the new stuff, and we were all sick of it anyway. So it seemed like the right thing to do. But there's certain songs. The Modern Leper will always stay. You know, Old Old Fashioned would be silly to leave it out. It's just part. You know, some things we do for ourselves.
You know, works no matter where you play every night.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's right at the front of the set. In fact, those two come in order. Those two are one after another.
Is it because you like them so much?
Yeah, and it's because I know that the majority of our fans really like them that much as well. You know, the reaction's great. It's a great start. Like everyone's just like, okay, everything's gonna be fine. It's good. But yeah, I mean, once we've found the set list for a tour, we'll make minor changes, but it usually stays pretty. I mean, it's amazing how fucking with a set list can actually make a show bad. I don't know, like I don't. Yeah. We found like real dips in shows where we knew it was our mistake to put this.
And how do you know that? I mean, being on stage, you can barely see the audience half the time. So how do you like hear them?
Feel it. You just feel it. Yeah. No, it's really. It's a really. I suppose it just comes with experience. As you can sort of feel you. I hate that feeling when you're like, oh no, I might be losing some of them, and it's important to like try and keep everyone in. And you just, I don't know. It's very difficult to describe. Like, you just feel the room drop.
And what have you learned as a performer to flip that mood? Have you found a way to do that?
Well, interaction, like, you know, talking, I've found, you know, that can turn a show around completely, because then the audience feels like a different connection on another level. They're getting something. If an audience feels like they're getting something that no other city has gotten, I mean, there's me, like, you know, some of the best times are when things go wrong, like something breaks, and then I'll be like, you know what, I'll give me an acoustic, I'll play this song. Mm-hmm. That's not happened any other night, and the whole show just turns around because something fucked up. That's kind of my favourite moments, you know, like when something unexpected happens, and that, you know, like talking to the audience, and I love it when people shout at me. Like, it's great. Yeah, that makes that thing unique, and you're able to play off that, and everyone can interact. And that makes it more difficult the larger the venue you get to. But yeah, I still try and keep as much of that as I can. You know, it's important.
So Andrew and I were talking before about finishing. So this is a little off topic, but I want to get this in before you got to go. About finishing songs and knowing when a song is finished.
Yeah.
Like, I have the hardest time when I edit video of knowing, okay, I got to leave this. This is done. So how do you know when it's done and just say it's finished now?
Well, it's finished when it's mastered.
Okay.
I think that's when you actually seal it off. For us this time around, we did, by working with a producer that we did, Leo Abrahams. He hi, is that? Oh, thank you very much. That's great. Okay, thank you. That's great.
Sugar or is that?
Oh no, that'll be fine. I've got bunnies. Leo was very good at putting a a full stop on the process. When he thought we'd done enough or put enough on the song, and he let us know, which I've not been very good at in the past. Like I can get a bit excessive with sonic layers, and I learned a lot from him in that way. So I think it is the hardest thing to do, and I think for me, I need someone else to say sometimes stop.
And who in the band would do that best, do you think?
Andy would do that.
Okay.
Andy would do that. He's a minimalist, and then obviously when we worked with Leo, he did that a lot as well. So, but on previous albums, I had nobody telling me that. Especially in the Winter of Mixed Drinks, the one before this was just like ridiculous. I went way overboard on the layers, and I think the album suffered as a result. So
really.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you strip it down live then? Do you try and take some of?
Well, we have no choice. Yeah, they have to.
Because,
But I think as a result, the songs kind of shine through a lot more strongly. But yeah, I think the goal of this record was to keep the clarity and the space and to let the songs breathe, if you like. So and I think restraint was the key to that.
Before I let you go, we do something called 5 questions. 5 quick questions.
Right.
1-word answers.
Right.
Road or studio?
Studio.
Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
When you hear a song, what usually hits you first? Lyrics, melody, or rhythm?
Rhythm.
Song you've written you're most proud of?
The Modern Leper.
Oh, you get it right away? Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a second or two. And in 1 word, Frightened Rabbit.
Tiring.
That's good when you're going to be on the road for the rest of the year. That's amazing.